Hello, everyone, and welcome to our event. My name is Ashley Schultz. I'm the Manager of Community Engagement here at Grants Office, and today we will be discussing the Safe Streets and Roads for All, or SS4A grant, which will offer more than $900 million this year to reduce or eliminate roadway injuries and fatalities in the United States. This event today is going to differ from many of our previous webinars on safe streets and smart transportation, in that we're going to spend the entire 40 minutes exclusively on just this one grant. We're going to do that here today because, first and foremost, SS4A is a pretty complex grant. It hasn't been around for very many years, and there are a lot of different pathways that applicants can take to access this funding, but you really need to be in the correct spot when you ultimately click submit, so it's worth spending a bit of time here to talk through those choices. The other reason we're spending so much time on one single grant is that, if you're listening to this here live with us today, SS4A applications are due in just 48 days. Now, in the grant-seeking world, that is simultaneously a long time and also not a long time. So we want to dedicate our webinar here today for those folks who really find themselves in the thick of it on their SS4A application. I'm joined today by Amanda Day, Grants Office Grants Development Consultant, who is our in-house expert on SS4A funding. Amanda is likely a familiar face to those of you who have joined previous events with us, particularly if they were related to cybersecurity, smart cities, and smart utilities. And I'm happy to share that she knows just as much about transportation funding and has helped dozens of organizations just like yourself to help navigate the ins and outs of funding that's bound for government entities. In short, Amanda has a wealth of expertise on this program and on grants in general, and I think you're going to learn a lot from her today. Here's a quick run-through of our agenda over the next 30 to 40 minutes. Once I pass things over to Amanda, she'll run you through a high-level introduction of the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. She'll say, what is it? What does it help you pay for? Who can go after it? We want to make sure before we dive into the nitty-gritty details of that program that this grant is really right for you. After we've cleared those hurdles, Amanda will tackle how to prepare a competitive SS4A application. She'll talk about core proposal components and also leave you with clear, concrete tips on how to have success within each. We'll also include a quick overview of some additional services Grants Office can provide you on this grant program, whether you need someone to come in and review a draft of your proposal, or maybe you want to have someone put pen to paper on your behalf and actually write that narrative for you. We'll have time for Q&A at the end of today's event, so please feel free to drop all questions you may have in the box found in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So with that, I'm going to pass things over into the very capable hands of Amanda to take us away. Amanda? Amanda, I'm so sorry. If you're introducing yourself, I think you might be on mute.
Apologies. Thank you, Ashley, and welcome everyone. We thank you for joining us today. I'll start off by kind of defining what SS4A is and how it's set up, and then I'll dive into some tips for creating a competitive proposal. So SS4A is a program that is a critical initiative that helps communities address the growing crisis of roadway fatalities and serious injuries. By providing funding and guidance, SS4A empowers recipients to plan, design, and implement safety improvements that protect all road users. So this program is grounded in the SAFE system approach. The SAFE system approach is essentially preventing crashes before they happen, being proactive, understanding that there is human error in our roadways, and creating programs and initiatives that will prevent fatalities and serious incidences. So bottom line, SS4A gives communities the tools and resources they need to save lives and make roads safer for everyone. So funding for this program, it's a 5-year program. It was created in 2021 as part of the IIJA, the Investment and Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act through the Biden administration. So this is technically the 5th and final year of funding. Although the program manager, Andrew Emanuel, stated that the program will likely continue in some form. It may not be in the form that it is currently or the funding levels that it is currently, but it most likely will continue in the coming years, because the program has been so effective and the recipients have done such a great job with implementing some of these projects. A total of $993 million is available in 2026 with a deadline of May 26th. Eligible applicants include the following. It's a long list. Local and tribal governments. This includes public safety agencies, including law enforcement, fire departments, emergency medical services, and 911 agencies. Select transit agencies, I will note that state transit agencies are not eligible, but other transit agencies are. Metropolitan planning organizations, and additionally, state-run public health agencies, school districts, and universities are also eligible to apply for this grant. So it's a long list of eligible applicants and really a good opportunity for partnerships. The DOT encourages partnerships of any of the previously listed applicants. For example, a road may run through 2 counties or through a county and tribal lands, and a partnership is required to put an application in for that. Or if you're planning to equip school buses with cameras, they may have to serve different towns, so a collaboration is key in that one as well. So partnering helps align strategies across cities, counties, and tribal lands for a more comprehensive approach, helping a lot more people, just an overall safety project rather than just limiting it to one applicant. So this grant is actually 2 grants in one. So it's split into 2 separate programs. First is planning and demonstration. These grants are the foundation of the SS4A program, helping communities take the first step towards safer streets. So these grants fund the development of comprehensive safety action plans. I'll just refer to them as safety action plans or action plans later, along with targeted studies and pilot projects to better understand and address local roadway risks. With this funding, communities can test solutions, analyze data, and build a clear plan for reducing crashes and saving lives. Now, the bulk of the applications for this program will come to planning and demonstration. So 400 to 700 applications are expected for planning and demonstration, and between 40 and 60 will be for implementation. But planning and demonstration gives you the opportunity to use data collection to create a comprehensive plan. So that's why planning and demonstration. I'll get into kind of the nitty-gritty of it a little bit later, but that kind of gives a basic overview. The implementation grants, these, if you think about it, planning and demonstration gets your plan together. Implementation says, I have a plan, it's been approved, and this is what we're going to do. These are the permanent changes that we're going to make. So they provide funding to turn safety plans into real operational improvements. They support projects that directly reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries. It will fund things like safer intersections, pedestrian crossings, traffic calming measures, and roadway redesigns. I have a more comprehensive list of some of the fundable activities later on. These help communities move from planning to action and deliver measurable safety outcomes. Since these grants fund the materials and technologies, the actual stuff, as I refer to it, needed to carry out these plans, a larger percentage of the funds will go to these types of grants. So about 1/3 of the funds will go to planning and demonstration and 2/3 to implementation, just because the expense is a lot higher to implement these activities. So explicitly this year, the DOT has stated that it's prioritizing public safety infrastructure used by public safety agencies. So a big focus on 911 systems and EMS services, emergency response coordination tools, pre-hospital blood transfusion activities, essentially the equipment for blood storage and temperature controlled transport. So there's a big focus on that. So we'll see a lot of public safety agencies or EMS applying for these funds this year, or at least partnering with cities and towns to apply for funds to improve emergency response. So how do I know what to apply to? Which one do I apply to? So in the first box is the safety action plan. So if you have a DOT approved safety action plan, you are ready to move on to implementation plans. I'll go over the safety action plans later, kind of what the requirements are and what you have to have in order to get an approved program or an approved plan. Now, if you don't have a DOT approved plan or you need to supplement an existing plan, we want to start with the planning and demonstration grants. So that one will help you create a plan that is DOT approved so that then you can start implementing some of the projects that you've done the studies on. You've created the plan and you've done all the research. So once you decide which one to apply to, then we kind of split off in 2 different directions. So I'll start off with assuming that you do not have a plan. So the planning and demonstration grants, there's actually 3 different fundable activities within this. So essentially, if you don't have a plan at all, or you're looking to improve on an existing plan, that's where we start with planning and demonstration. So the ultimate goal is to create a comprehensive safety action plan, and you can apply for funds to start from scratch or use three existing local plans to accomplish this. So if you're editing or adding to an existing plan, you'll be asked to provide a status of where exactly your plan is. So we've talked a little bit about the two. Actually, we talked a little about all three. So there are three eligible activities. First, funds are provided to create a new action plan. You can apply to supplemental plans, supplement existing plans as well. And these are funds that are used to update existing plans for things like road safety audits, data collection and analysis, stakeholder engagement activities or meetings, surveys, all those kinds of things to kind of supplement the action plan that you're creating. The demonstration part of planning and demonstration grants refers to temporary real-world pilot projects that let communities test safety solutions before making permanent investments. So examples might be temporary curb extensions using cones or paint, pop-up bike lanes or pedestrian plazas, removable rumble strips, something like an interim crosswalk or traffic calming measures of some kind. I do want to stress these are temporary measures. They need to be removable. They are simply there to make studies, to collect data on how these measures are affecting traffic flow, affecting accidents, affecting pedestrians' safety and things like that. So essentially, it's a test before you build by collecting data to prove the effectiveness of the type of projects you're hoping to implement. So ultimately, this goal is to create an approved safety action plan. The DOT has outlined a list of required components, and there are 7 components to an approved safety action plan. So these 7 components create clear strategic roadmaps to identify risks, prioritize solutions, and deliver safer streets for all. So number 1 is leadership commitment and goal setting. This is a formal public commitment, which is a resolution, policy, or ordinance made by a high-ranking official. Think of your mayor, a city council, tribal council, or a metropolitan planning organization policy board to work on eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries. Planning and structure is a committee, task force, implementation group, or a similar body responsible for overseeing the development, implementation, and monitoring of the action plan. Safety analysis refers to the review of existing conditions and historical trends to establish a baseline understanding of crashes involving serious or fatal injuries within your jurisdiction, locality, tribe, whoever the applicant is. Engagement and collaboration include meaningful involvement of the public and key stakeholders such as private sector, a community group, to ensure representation and input. So feedback is gathered through these efforts and it's reviewed and incorporated into your action plan. So all of the data that you've gathered from your engagement with the community or stakeholders is included in your plan. Policy and process changes. This includes the assessment of current policies, plans, and guidelines to identify opportunities to improve how processes prioritize transportation safety. And then as a result of this, new policies are created to include transportation safety as a priority. Strategy and project selection involves identifying a range of projects and actions guided by data, best practices, and stakeholder input to address safety issues in your action plan. And finally, progress and transparency refers to tracking results over time in an action plan, including outcome data while maintaining clear and ongoing communication with residents and stakeholders. So nothing is secret. Everyone is informed on a regular basis, and information is available to those who would like to know what the progress is of your plan. So if you have a plan that you feel fits this criteria, but you're unsure, the DOT is offering the opportunity to have your plan reviewed. So the deadline for this review is April 24th. I think it's a really good idea if you have any doubt If your plan is a DOT approved plan, just get them to review it. They are more than happy to do it. They are expecting people to submit their plans. The instructions for submitting your plan are on the Safe Streets and Roads for All website. I will say that this is an amazing website. Please utilize it. The resources are there. They have provided with so many different resources, videos, webinars, all kinds of links to instructions on how to fill things out, examples of different budget sheets and things like that. So please utilize that website when you're getting ready to apply. So everything is on that website. I will note also, this is a different grant. This is application will not go through grants.gov. This goes directly through the SS4A website. There is a link to the implementation grant application and a link to planning and demonstration grants. Two different applications, very similar, but two different applications. So make sure you're keeping your eyes open for the differences in those. So you have decided that you do have an approved action plan and you're ready to apply for implementation grants. So I'll just kind of recap the purpose a little bit again of implementation grants. I know this is a lot of information to put in, you know, a 40-minute webinar, but once you get started, you really start to understand the grant. So don't be you know, afraid to dig into it. There was a customer that I talked to who was just terrified of applying. Once she opened up the application and dug into it, she said it was fine. She encouraged the towns around her to apply to it because she found a much easier process than it looked like from the get-go. So the implementation grants support applicants who are ready to take action by funding projects that directly improve roadway safety. These grants focus on implementing strategies and infrastructure identified in your safety action plan. So you can apply for funding only for projects identified in your plan. As we discussed earlier, if you need to edit or add to your plan, you can bundle supplemental planning with an implementation grant application. That's the kind of the hard part to understand, is that if you already have an action plan that's ready to go, but you want to add something to it or edit something, you can apply for supplemental planning and the implementation project. So in the budget worksheet for implementation grants, there is space for that. So once you open that budget sheet, you'll understand what I'm saying. So my example is, if you have emergency response measures in your action plan, but you have decided to incorporate unmanned aircraft, you can apply for funds to do supplemental planning by adding the aircraft into your plan, but at the same time apply for the funds to implement that aircraft. So it's kind of we had the plan all set, we decided we wanted to add something, and we're applying for the funds to add those drones. So think of it that way. If you include implementation projects in your budget that are not in your approved plan, the review committee can reject your application. They will reject your application. So you can only apply for projects that were included in your action plan. And again, you're encouraged to submit your safety action plan for review by April 24th if you have any doubt if it's an approved plan. So what else must be in your DOT approved plan? We're spending a lot of time on this because the worst thing you could do is apply for this grant, attach your safety plan, and it not be DOT approved. So we want to make sure that you understand everything you need to have in that safety action plan. So first, you have to have all three of these components. So all of the following safety analysis of existing conditions and historical trends to provide a baseline of crashes across your jurisdiction, analysis of location or locations of crashes, the severity of those crashes and contributing factors, and the crash type, analysis of systematic and specific safety needs, for example, high-risk road features, specific safety needs for road users, post-crash care, a geospatial identification or map of higher risk locations. For those of you who don't know what that is, or don't know how to make that map, there are detailed instructions on the website outlining how to create that map. And like I said, this website has done a great job of providing you with a lot of resources that will help you through this application process. Secondly, include strategy and project selections, the list of specific projects and strategies that will address the safety problem that you have identified, including prioritization of the elements of the project and time ranges when those projects are to be implemented. And your report must be less than 5 years old. Your action plan must be less than 5 years old. So between 2021 and May 2026, and it can be approved on the last day, on the day of the application submission. So right down to the wire, if your action plan is approved, you are still eligible to apply. The following 5 points, 3 of these must be included in your action plan. So not all of them, but at least 3 of them must be included in your action plan. So it must contain leadership commitment and goal setting. So list your commitments by high-ranking officials or the governing body, including target dates to achieve reductions in roadway fatalities. We want to make sure that those targets are within the grant project period as well. They must be created by committee or task force, describe membership of the group and what role they played in the development of the action plan. Show evidence and engagement of collaboration. So provide detailed information about public meetings, participation in public and private events. If you've done surveys, those count as well. Proactive meetings with stakeholders to create the plan. Review current policies and suggest process changes. Describe how the committee assessed current practices and standards to identify opportunities that can improve how processes prioritize safety. So it's important that you review your current policies, and after reviewing them, if changes need to be made, suggest those changes and implement them into new policies. And finally, detail how progress will be tracked and shared. So if you're granted the award, explain progress reporting structure, a list of proposed metrics, who will be doing the reporting, and how you're going to measure these. What metrics are you using to measure them? Crash data detail or, police department reports, things like that. So 3 of the 5 of those elements have to be in your plan as well. A couple notes about existing action plans. The DOT will allow you to combine up to 3 existing plans to create a comprehensive safety action plan, and you may use existing plans from a higher jurisdiction as an eligible plan. So if you're a town within a county that has an approved plan, you can use their plan. If you're a county within, with a metropolitan planning organization who has an approved plan, you can use their plan as well. It's just, again, we talk about partnerships and collaboration. This is what we're talking about, collaborating with other entities to get your best proposal submitted. So an implementation plan grants, they'll fund a wide range of activities that directly improve roadway safety and reduce fatalities and serious injuries. These grants fund practical, data-driven actions that make immediate and lasting safety improvements to our roads. So we're planning a demonstration. They were temporary measures to gather data. That data is used to then say, yes, these worked. We reduced injury, we reduced crashes. So now we want to implement them in real life, essentially. So this can include comprehensive roadway redesigns, the installation of protected bike lanes, targeted intersection improvements, and a variety of traffic calming measures, think rumble strips, things like that, along with strategic roadway reconfigurations, all aimed at improving safety, reducing speeds, and enhancing mobility for all users. And I want to reiterate again, they're not looking for measures that will just help traffic or just help vehicles. They're looking for all users. So anyone on wheels, pedestrians, kind of all of the people who are using the roads, not necessarily just cars and other vehicles. So keep that in mind when you're doing your narrative to include all users. Secondly, a range of safety-focused strategies to improve how people move through the roadway network. So these include speed management measures to reduce vehicle speeds in high-risk areas. I will stop there and say that in this round, traffic speed cameras can only be used in school zones or in construction zones. So they're not allowing for speed cameras to be used on highways or things like that. Just in either school zones or construction zones. So keep that in mind if you are applying for speed management measures. They will fund signal timing improvements to enhance traffic flow and reduce conflicts, meaning smart traffic signals to help emergency vehicles get through in a timely manner. And the use of intelligent transportation systems to support more efficient and responsive traffic operations. Number 3, supplemental planning activities. We talked about that a little bit before, but this includes pilot and demonstration efforts that can be used to explore and test safety interventions in real-world conditions through data collection and evaluation. You can better understand performance, identify opportunities for improvement, and refine designs to support effective and sustainable safety outcomes. So those are the supplemental planning and demonstration activities that can be included in an implementation grant. If that is confusing to anybody, please, you can reach out to our help desk and we can definitely expand on that. But that's where the bundle comes in that I was talking about earlier. And number 4 are crash data systems and safety analysis tools, GIS-based safety mapping and analytics, and integrated data platforms to identify high-risk locations and inform targeted safety improvements. And finally, planning and design and engineering for safety projects. These will support final design and engineering work for key safety improvements, along with feasibility studies that help guide implementation. So this is by no means an exhaustive list. Essentially, funding is provided for any measures that you can justify in your plan that will help reduce safety or help reduce crashes and improve safety. So if there's something you have a question about as far as will this be funded, again, you can reach out to us. So now that we've kind of covered which grant to apply to, maybe you've decided which grant you're going to go for, I'm going to kind of give you some tips and tricks to have a successful grant application, have a comprehensive, competitive grant application. So some of the elements of the actual application are things like safety and data analysis. You should use crash data, roadway characteristics, and risk analysis to pinpoint high-risk locations and high-risk populations. The more clearly you connect data to the proposed solutions, the more competitive your application will be. Engagement and collaboration. Strong applications demonstrate meaningful engagement with community members and collaboration with key partners. This includes involving public, stakeholders, the local agencies early on to ensure that your plan reflects real needs and priorities. So partnering with police departments if you're a town. If you're a police department, partnering with EMS. Those partnerships, again, we go back to how important those partnerships are. The more of the population that your grant will affect, the better chance that you have on being funded. You need to clearly show how that input was gathered, if it was a meeting, if it was surveys, how partners were involved, and how the feedback that you got from those entities shaped your safety strategies. You need to clearly demonstrate that your action plan includes the 7 required components. If one of those components is missing, again, your application, your action plan will not be approved. For your budget spreadsheet, there are 2 spreadsheets, one for each type of grant, as I said. Make sure you're using the correct Excel document and make sure they're complete. If you miss anything on this Excel spreadsheet, the application can be rejected. So ensure that you're using the correct one. They're on the website side by side. So just make sure you're using the correct budget worksheet. It is an Excel worksheet. It is very clearly defined of what you need to fill out in the Excel spreadsheet. again, any questions, please reach out. Letters of support strengthen your application, demonstrating broad backing and readiness to implement. Include partners like community organizations, your state DOTs, because they can't apply themselves, but they can certainly help you. Public safety agencies and schools. Focus on quality over quantity. Fewer highly detailed letters are much stronger than a number of vague or incomplete letters of recommendation. Your project timeline needs to be clear. A phased timeline shows how the project will move from planning to completion. So the easiest thing to do is break the timeline into key stages like project kickoff, data collection and safety analysis, stakeholder engagement and coordination, action plan development or project design, and then monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. So the final element is your program narrative. The narrative page limit for planning and demonstration is 12 single-spaced pages, while the limit for implementation is up to 14 pages. The narrative will be attached to your application, and you want to make sure that you clearly outline why the project is needed, outline specific strategies, and demonstrate collaboration and partnerships. Highlight how your approach is a data-driven and focused on high-risk areas and vulnerable road users. And you need to connect the narrative to those core components of the action plan. So include expected outcomes and safety benefits as well. Most importantly, make sure your narrative is well organized and easy to follow. Remember that reviewers are going to be looking at hundreds of applications, and if you're all over the place, they will be lost and kind of trying to figure out your application. So it needs to be clear and concise, include everything that you need to include, and keep it very easy to navigate and follow through. So those are the components of your actual application. Next is kind of core strategies for success. So we've included these to make sure that you have some resources to make your application more competitive. So these are just some tips that we developed to help you along your way. So start with a clear safety action problem, or a clear safety problem. So you need to use extensive data that you've collected. So whether that's through the planning and demonstration grants where you've done data collection and use those temporary safety measures to get the data from the roadways that you're looking at. So how many fatalities, what are the serious injury numbers, what trends are you seeing in the roadways? Are you identifying the high-risk corridors or populations? Including that information is important. Is it the rural roads that are a problem? Is it the high traffic roads that are the problem? And show disparities. Equity is scored really high in Safe Streets and Roads for All. You'll see the words underserved communities quite often. In the application, one of the questions is you need to check whether or not your project is taking place in one of those underserved communities. So keep that in mind. And an underserved community, if you think of it as communities that have reduced access to services, tribal communities, rural communities, poorer communities. So those applications are scored higher in Safe Streets and Roads for All. So keep that in mind when you're filling out your application. You need to align your priorities with the Safe Streets and Roads for All guidance. So a safe system approach is what we talked about before. Underserved communities. Are you looking for speed management? What are the vulnerable road users that you're trying to protect? We want to create a strong actionable plan. So we've talked about that action plan a lot. So we want to be specific about what we want to do. We don't want to say we'd like to save lives on Route 81. We want to say we are planning on, replacing all traffic signals with smart traffic signals in order to exponentially increase the response of emergency vehicles, things like that. So be specific. Include timelines and phases. Again, make sure they're within the project timeline, the project period of performance. And for implementation grants, you want to show that projects are ready or very close to ready to implement. Demonstration, readiness, and capacity. You need to define staff roles and expertise, who is doing what and what qualifies them to do the tasks that they're assigned. Project management structure, who is the project manager, who is the support system. And then if you have similar work that was completed before, you want to include that with your application. Let them know what you've already done before you've applied for these funds. Going back to partnerships, we're going to focus on that a lot. As you see, you want to select meaningful partnerships. Who is benefiting from this partnership? So local governments, MPOs, law enforcement, public safety, community-based organizations, and things like that. Tribal governments as well. Creating community engagement plan. We want to make sure that we are engaging the community in these decisions and getting feedback from them and implementing it in our plan. So how will you engage with residents, especially underserved groups? Again, going back to meetings and surveys and things like that. So we want to include the methods that we had. We had a workshop on April 4th. We sent out a survey and received so many responses. Just be really detailed in your plan of what you've done to gather the data. And then you'll show how that feedback will influence your decisions, what feedback you've gotten and how it will influence what your plan is trying to do. Next is define clear outcomes and metrics. We want to make sure we are saying what the goal is, give numbers. We are aiming to reduce traffic fatalities by 100%. What your speed reduction targets are on certain highways. What mile markers you're looking to improve, what intersections, being very specific and not just saying a quarter of the intersections need new crosswalks. We want to be very accurate in what we're saying, the street names and what you're going to do. And finally, build a budget and make sense. Costs should be reasonable and justified, meaning you have to understand how much the measures that you're looking to implement are going to cost. So match the scope to the budget, meaning don't ask for too much, don't ask for too little, be accurate in your budget and exactly what you're asking for, just to make sure that your budget is in line with the scope of your project. And finally, include your required match and explain the sources. So there's a 20% match for this program, and it can be either a cash match or an in-kind match. So an in-kind match would be man hours, volunteer hours actually count toward this as well. This is clearly defined again on the website. So make sure you're checking the website for guidance on in-kind matches or your cash match. The thing I want to point out is Safe Streets and Roads for All will fund things like road reconfigurations, rumble strips, crosswalk improvements, adding a roundabout, the addition of bicycle paths, signage upgrades. Those are all non-technology based improvements, and they absolutely will fund those. But they are also looking for innovative ideas to improve safety and save lives. So when we talk about innovation, what comes to my mind is technology that is advancing traffic safety. So when we talk about the technologies that will be funded, we're looking at things like smart traffic signals that adjust in real time. I've talked about that a little bit, allowing for emergency vehicles to get through faster, whether it's fire or EMS or police, AI-powered red light or speed warning systems, connected vehicle technologies, whether that's vehicle to infrastructure communication, vehicle to vehicle communications, pedestrian and cyclist safety. So the implementation of smart crosswalks with motion detection and flashing alerts, pedestrian detection systems using cameras or sensors, and adaptive lighting that brightens when someone is present. So oftentimes you'll be driving and see that lights are fading in and out. This is why, because they're being more energy efficient by staying dim if no one is underneath them, but then lighting up as people or bicyclists go by. So advanced safety measures with lighting is also a big part of this grant. Speed management, dynamic speed feedback signs, automated speed enforcement pilots. This is what I talked about earlier, where they're allowed in school zones and construction sites, and data-driven speed management tools. Finally, data and analytics tools, crash data and dashboards, near miss detection using video analytics and GIS-based risk mapping tools. So those are some of the types of technologies, advanced technologies that they're looking for you to implement into your plans. And as technology advances, we're going to see a lot more of these measures come to light as far as AI-driven technologies in traffic safety. They also will fund technology pilot programs. So something that you're trying to implement might be a testing new safety technologies in real world conditions, collecting data on effectiveness, and demonstrating measurable safety improvements. So those are some of the innovative technologies that they will actually fund. So this next slide, I kind of wanted to give examples of the different types of applicants and the different types of projects that were applied to. These are last year's awards. So City of Phoenix, they received funds for safety upgrades to one of their high injury intersections and some tow corridors. This MPO received funding to actually develop their plan and conduct supplemental studies. This tribal government received an award to deploy AI-driven technologies and other intelligent traffic systems. And the City of Ontario, California, provided funds. They were provided funds to test unmanned aircraft or drones for emergency response. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that type of thing, where drones can actually deliver blood to sites. They can deliver footage back to the home base or the police department to see what emergency aid is needed. So those are some of the kinds of things they're funding. Now, on the next page, you'll see a QR code. This is a link to all of last year's awards. And there's over 500 awards. I think 551 awards were made for almost $1 billion. 50% of these are to rural communities or tribal areas. So 340 million was awarded to those areas to help them deal with traffic issues that they were having. So that's a really good thing to check out. It gives you an idea of what's being funded, what's not being funded, and who is being funded. So with that, I will turn things over to Ashley to kind of let you know how we can help you with this application.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thanks so much, Amanda, for that wonderful information. Folks, while I'm chatting here, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner. Amanda, I've got at least 6 questions for you right now, more on their way. So first and foremost, as Amanda said, the Department of Transportation's website for Safe Streets and Roads for All is a really excellent resource. But we also wanted to offer you this free eligibility and proposal workbook. So if you hit that QR code here, or you wait to get an email from our amazing media coordinator, Kate, later today with the recording and slide deck from today's presentation, you will also see this application workbook where you can work through, triple confirm your eligibility, look through all the details about your action plan, and then also kind of start planning your application out, should you choose to move forward. So just to let you know, you should watch for that in your inbox as time goes on. I also want to call attention to the number of folks who have reached out to us, in the last 2 to 3 months, trying to understand what else is happening with the U.S. federal budget. Obviously, Safe Streets for All was guaranteed funding through the IIJA in the previous administration, but there is quite a bit of discourse surrounding how and when the U.S. federal government is providing other grants, particularly those that come through the standard federal budget process. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to check out our website under the Guidance for Grant Seekers tab. There we have a series of 5-minute videos on the U.S. federal budget. What has passed, what has not passed, how much funding is available, what changes are we seeing in the grant funding landscape, etc. All of those videos are available for you on demand and are completely free on our website right now. I also want to call out Grants Office's grant writing and editing services that I referred to at the beginning of today's event. Our team here, filled with folks just like Amanda, has 25-year reputation across both the US and Canada on proposal development work. We help organizations just like yourself to plan out and then articulate their projects in a way that's really going to speak to the funder's goals and objectives. So if you followed along with today's session and you plan to apply to the SS4A grant, but you feel like you're going to need some help getting across the finish line, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have full proposal development in writing. So what this means for SS4A is that you come to us with a general overview of your project and a budget, and we'll get you a grant writer who can translate all those ideas into a competitive narrative that you can then submit to the Department of Transportation. If you're already writing the proposal yourself, but you want just an extra set of eyes in the draft, make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's, we also offer proposal editing services at 25% of the full cost of grant writing. So what does that look like if you're working with us? If you're interested in exploring our support, the first step would be to contact us at grantwriting@grantsoffice.com. You want to come to that email having already read through and worked through a lot of the questions in that workbook that I mentioned earlier. You don't need to have full sentences. You don't need to have beautiful prose for all the prompts, but we do ask that you have given each component of your project a fair deal of thought, right? What geographic areas are going to be included in your scope? What types of roadway safety plan needs to happen? Or if you already have a traffic safety plan in place, which items on your to-do list are you going to prioritize? Things like that. From there, you'll meet with Amanda or another member of our team to discuss your project goals and your development needs. If you contract with us for writing, we'll get you connected to a writer who will start putting pen to paper on your behalf. And we try to give you at least 2 opportunities to review those drafts and provide feedback to make sure we've really captured your organization's goals and mission correctly. And as you work towards that May 26th deadline, we give you all the application materials so that you can upload them into the portal and then click submit. So again, if this is something that you're interested in, please contact us at grantwriting@grantsoffice.com to get started. And if you followed us here to the end of today's session, but you actually don't think SS4A is right for you, I will also call your attention to other Grants Office services that are available. We have research and consultation services. These things allow you to sit down with a consultant, discuss your upcoming projects, and then be provided with a list of state, federal, and foundation grants that would best support those initiatives. We have project building services that, again, allow you to sit down with a consultant like Amanda to build out a competitive application on an entirely different grant program. And then last, but certainly not least, we have our subscription service, Grants Office Communities, which gives you access to our database of more than 26,000 state, federal, and foundation grants so that you can do the research and the project building all on your own inside a platform that was designed for and by grants people. Grants Office Communities always offers a free 2-week trial, so if you haven't gone over to check that out yet, I definitely encourage you to do so. So with that, I want to move on to the questions that are in the chat. Thank you folks who have stuck around here past our 40-minute promised timeline. Just lots of exciting things happening here. So Amanda, the first question I have for you is, does our state action or our safety action plan have to be funded through a planning grant, or could we have already had that done before?
It does not have to be funded through SS4A planning grants. It can be something that was previously created. Just that's the kind of plan that I would definitely send through to the approval, the team that kind of reviews it and lets you know if it's an approved plan. And again, you have until the 24th, so definitely I would submit that for approval, but no, it does not have to be.
Okay, great. Another question about the plans. I sense a theme here. Lots of people asking about the safety action plans. Would a bike and pedestrian master plan be considered a safety action plan?
It depends if that has those 7 components. As long as it has those 7 components, it can definitely be that type of plan. It just has to include the 7 components and the other components that we're talking about. Again, if you have any questions, I would definitely submit it because they will give you feedback and say what is missing. They're not just going to send you a no. So they'll give you feedback on what is missing if that's the type of plan that you want to submit.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. For an implementation grant, does a project have to be specifically named in a county action plan? If that strategy is being implemented in a county action plan, would that be acceptable? Excuse me.
That's something I would have to look into. Kate, can you get their name perhaps? And I can look into that. I don't have a direct answer.
Sure. Another question about an implementation grant. How detailed do the budget line items have to be, and should they be separated by component?
They should be separated by component. There's plenty of space for you to put, it actually says component. And they should be as accurate as possible if you can get quotes from a few different reliable sources and average those out. They're looking for as close as you get. It doesn't have to be to the penny, obviously, but it does have to be relatively close. And that's what I was talking about when I said, when you're doing the budget, don't ask for too little, don't ask for too much, and make sure you're as accurate as you can be.
Hmm. I would also say that having more exact quotes infers project readiness, which is one of the priorities for 2026. So showing that you've gone through, thought about all the costs, and are really ready to hit the ground running can be expressed through your budget, not just your narrative.
Good point. Thank you.
And I have one last question for you here, Amanda. It's about the self-certification worksheet. Does that need to be submitted in advance of the application due date, or is it just attached to the application on May 26th?
It is attached. That's an attachment. So the self-certification worksheet, which I did not cover, is you're saying, yes, this is a DOT approved plan. I am self-certifying without having to submit it for review. So that will be included with your application.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Again, thanks to all of you who stuck around here for the extra 11 minutes while we finished up our content and our questions and answers. Thank you also to Amanda for providing such excellent information. And thanks also to you for joining us here on this Grants Office webinar. We hope you found this to be a good use of your time, and we hope to see you on a future event. Thanks again.